if it wasn't bio mom telling stepson to act this way and do this stuff,
right,
then this has caused her problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it was her, then it bit her in the butt.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Nacho Kids Podcast, where we discuss all things step-family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Welcome to episode 148 of the Nacho Kids Podcast.
So do you want to make the announcement or do you want me to do it?
You do it, David.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
You do it.
Okay. So after a lot of discussion, Lori and I have decided that we are going to shut it down.
Shut what down?
Shut it all down. We're going to just put an end to all of it. It's been a good, fun ride, but our time has come.
April Fools! I made David lie to y'all so I wouldn't.
Gotcha. We ain't going nowhere, fools.
Not till I'm dead.
Yeah.
Or David kills me, which I'd still be dead.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, no fear. Not going anywhere. We do hope that we cause a bit of panic, but no stress, just panic.
And we hope that everybody's still listening to this and didn't just cut it off.
Oh, they didn't. Trust me. We could have ended last time with, we had this big announcement or whatever.
Well,
just, yeah.
We're not going back, David. We're not going back.
No, we're not going back. We're not shutting it down. Not going anywhere. Too many people need us, and we need to help millions more people. So we will be here for quite a while.
Yes.
But anyway, what else do you have on your mind other than messing with our awesome listeners?
In 4 weeks from today, you and I will be in Fort Worth, Texas.
That's right.
Yeehaw! We are doing a step couples conference with Laura Petherbridge, Heidi Farrell and her husband. Oh, and Laura's husband. Lori McGregor and her husband. Summer Butler and her husband.
Cool.
And Melanie Anthony and her husband.
That's right.
I think I got everybody.
Looking forward to all that.
I am too.
So some of these folks I have not met before. I have met probably half of them in person.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, looking forward to it. And I've already started causing trouble.
Yes, you did. I have a feeling that you and Summer's husband, we're going to have to put leashes on y'all or something. And maybe duct tape over your mouths.
Yep. He's already told me that he's going to get a room for him and then a room for his wife so that they can enjoy their time. And I said, great, that'll give me someplace to sleep when Lori kicks me out.
You never know, folks. You never know.
No, sure don't. But yeah, it's going to be fun. Got to make it fun. Good grief, man. It's tough to do this stuff. Got to make it fun.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. Wonder what kind of April's Fool's joke I could play on Jackson. I could tell him he's on restriction, but he would just laugh.
How about this? How about the night before you go out to his truck, or maybe the morning of. The morning of, you go out to his truck, okay? You open the doors up, take as much out as you possibly can, and then you just leave the doors open. And then you wake him up and go, did you leave your doors open last night? And then he runs out there and he realizes that somebody's broke into his truck and stole stuff.
David, that's horrible.
That's awesome. We're going to do it.
No, we're not.
I'm going to do it.
No, you're not. No.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
No. Let's think of an April Fool's joke that we can do your kids.
Okay. I actually lived that horror story though. Woke up one morning, walked outside, my door's standing open in my car, and I'm like, what? I did not leave my door standing open. And all my stereo equipment was gone. Yep. It was a bad day.
That's horrible. I thought you were going to say unplug the terminals for the battery.
Yeah, that'd be fun too.
Yeah, we had this guy install some tile for us, and David was outside when he was getting ready to leave one day, And the guy had to hook his terminals back up to his battery.
Yeah. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm from Arizona. And it's just a habit. Out there, you have to disconnect your battery or people will steal your car. And I was like, of course, before I say this, because it was rude, he and I have been poking at each other the whole day. And so I looked at him and I said, ain't nobody gonna steal this piece of junk.
I'm thinking, okay, we're not on the road. We're kind of out in the woods a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I start thinking, I wonder if he does that when he goes to like eat or Walmart.
I don't know, but I would think most people coming to our house would probably face the car, going out of the driveway and make sure their keys are in the ignition and ready to go. Because we've had more people than not come to our house and going, dude, I was halfway down that driveway and I wasn't so sure I wanted to keep coming.
Uh-huh.
We had one lady a few weeks ago. I was selling something on Facebook and she wouldn't come down the driveway. I had to go to the top of the driveway to meet her with the item. She's like, man, that thing's a spooky driveway at night. I ain't going down in there.
I always call it the Ichabod Crane driveway.
It's funny. It's funny how some people won't come down the driveway.
That's what we should name our road, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, that would fit.
It
We
would.
just call it the Legend of Sleepy Lori.
Look here, with them puppies, Lori ain't getting much sleep. And with her husband snoring, life's just harder.
I don't know. You say I snore, but I have never heard it.
So I'm going to record you snoring.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that I catch you snoring and play it for you the next day, you have to do the dishes.
Okay, I'll agree to that if every time it catches you talking in your sleep, you have to do the dishes.
But I don't wake you up every time. There's a difference with somebody going blah, 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 and
Look, no. There is no blah, 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 blah. Okay? Most of the time it's, I told you, get out of here right now. I mean, there's times when I like wake up from a dead sleep wondering if I should be reaching for a weapon because I don't know if somebody's broken into the house or what's happening. It's crazy.
Nothing's happened. Calm down.
I understand now why older people sometimes have different bedrooms, though.
Yeah, I'm thinking that probably won't be a bad idea. So where are you going to sleep? Because I'm keeping the big bedroom.
What?
You can go upstairs.
It's not a bad idea.
You always say I keep it cold down here. It's warmer up there.
No, because then you'll be complaining. I'll never see you up there all the time.
Well, then come visit once in a while. It's okay.
Hey, it'd be like when we were dating.
Yeah.
Might work out great.
It might. All right. There's already a bed up there. So tonight, let's try that.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, because then you're like, I can still hear you snoring upstairs. Good Lord.
I probably could. And you probably run down with a gun to shoot somebody for me screaming. Okay. So, sweet little angel Lori.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, I'm talking about myself. Needs to lose some weight, y'all. So,
y'all, check this out. She goes through her closet and she takes out these clothes. And she does this all the time. Like twice a year, she takes these clothes out and she puts them in the, I'm still going to get into these at some point box. And it's like, how long have you had that? I wore that when I was a junior in high school.
You lie. You lie.
I'm still going to get back into it one day.
Well, you know what? The size I was as a junior in high school was the size I was when we got married there, mister.
Okay.
And it's not like I've went up 6 sizes. You just need to stop talking.
No, you have not.
Okay.
And I told you that,
I know.
You bash yourself more about it than you should.
Yes. But y'all notice he didn't say, you don't need to lose weight or you're not fat. But anyway.
Yeah. See, there's a slippery slope. And it's like your wife says, don't lie to me about anything. And then, but sometimes she's like, I don't really want you to tell me the truth either. So
God should have given you discernment, David.
that's why I keep my mouth shut most of the time. when
All
you
right.
start talking about this
let's
stuff.
try it. Let's practice.
See, I've learned,
Didn't work.
I'm sure you've noticed this. I've learned that when we are having these conversations, I try to find something to snack on, or if we're eating dinner, because I will cram as much food in my mouth as I possibly can so that I don't say anything at all.
Okay. Well, just for the record, David's gained weight too. And
yeah, because every time you talk about stuff, I cram stuff in my mouth.
So anyway, I was talking about I needed to lose weight. And he said, how can I help you with this?
Isn't that a sweet response?
It is. And my response was, don't talk to me about it. Don't say, you really need to eat that? Or didn't you just already eat one piece of pizza? Don't be doing that. Don't be doing it. So he said, okay, I'm going to leave you if you don't lose 10 pounds. I said, bye.
I ain't worth 10 pounds, y'all.
Now, I hope y'all are listening, and y'all, this is not your first time, and you know how me and David joke with each other, because he did not mean that.
In certain parts of the world, you'd have to lose 10 stone.
Yeah, that's a lot more. If David did mean that when he said it, he wouldn't have to worry about losing weight because he'd be dead. DEAD.
Good job. No, I said, well, I figured if I did that, maybe it would cause some stress hormones and she'd lose weight, because she's all stressed out because I might leave. No stress at all. She just like, bye.
You still say hormones. You won't say hormones.
Hush, I'm not saying it.
Well, they say people lose weight when they get divorced. So that's kind of what he was implying. But yeah.
Well, we've talked before, or joked before. We haven't talked. We joked before about how if we got divorced, that we would both lose weight and get in shape, and then we can get back together.
Move upstairs. Maybe that'll help. Who knows?
Yeah, where all the equipment is for us to work out.
Yeah. Don't worry. I won't come to visit you. You can just come visit me.
Okay, so what do we have today?
Apparently 2 people full of themselves. All right. The winner of the Nacho Kids Academy Linda Dunham Scholarship is Jay Lawrence.
All right. Congratulations, Jay.
Congratulations. Check your email and we will get you getting going.
That's right.
And our guest today is Stepmom Britt. Britt's been blending for 4.5 years. Pay attention, people. Stepdaughter 18, stepdaughter 17, stepdaughter 15, stepson 8, bio son 2, and our son is on the way. She's 7 months pregnant.
Ooh.
Did anybody catch she's been blending for 4.5 years and has a bio son that is 2?
Okay. How'd that happen?
Listen, David, and you'll find out.
Huh.
And I will clarify, she did not cheat on her husband. They were on a break.
Well, there you go. That says it all.
She did not say, they were on a break. I did. Because I always think about Friends. Anybody that's ever watched Friends, Ross and Rachel were on a break. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, so if you and I take a break.
David.
What?
Let's take a break. Let's take a break.
I'm just wanting to clarify. If you ever come to me and say, I think we need to take a break, I know what that's code for.
It's not code for anything.
All right, I'm leaving you if you don't lose 10 pounds. What's that code for?
That's code for bye-bye. Pack your stuff. Actually, you can't leave me because you would want to stay here. So I would have to leave you if I didn't lose 10 pounds.
That's true.
Hey, wait a minute. It's a win-win. If I lose 10 pounds, I win. If I don't lose 10 pounds, I win. I wish people could see the look on your face right now. That's the look I give you 90% of the time. Okay, back to our guest. The hardest part of blending for her is dad guilt, bio mom and her family not allowing the stepkids to enjoy their time with the stepmom and the bio dad. Best advice? Nacho. The stepkids don't come to visit anymore, but her husband does spend time with the younger stepson away from the house.
That I hate that.
Yeah. And I know you stepmoms are going, oh, I wish that was me. I wish that was me. No, you don't. Because your husband would lose more than 10 pounds. He would be depressed and he would be sad and miserable. And you don't want that for somebody you love.
No.
And I'm not saying that Britt's husband's miserable or anything like that. I'm not putting words in her mouth. But it's not easy.
No. And it could backfire on you to where the resentment about what happened could be placed on you.
Exactly.
Yep. That's a tough one. That's good and bad. Certainly bad because you're not seeing all your kids anymore, but good that at least one of them he's spending time with.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we're going to tell you. You got to listen to it.
That's right. All right. Well, before we get into the interview, though, let's talk a little bit about the Nacho Kids Academy.
Let's talk about the Nacho Kids Academy, David.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, we have the Nacho Kids Academy, which is at nachokidsacademy.com. You can learn more there. But that's where we take all of the stuff that we talk about and the tools and the how-tos, and we put it all together and help you better your blend.
There are over 25 video courses, hundreds of hours of previous Q&A coaching calls, 2 Q&A coaching calls a month, an anonymous forum where you can connect with other members and myself and David. And there are 3 challenges, one being the Nacho Kids Boot Camp.
Mm-hmm. And we do have a whole list of other courses that we're working on, so we'll get those in there over time as we get those ready. And it's amazing. Somebody mentioned to me earlier this week, they were talking about how, I wish so-and-so would, or this program, not talking about Nacho Kids, but they were talking about this other program. I wish this program would give me the tools to use to do X, Y, Z. And for some reason, it just kind of dawned on me. I had this mental image of somebody handing me like a hammer and a circular saw and a screwdriver and saying, go out there and build this thing. Go out there and build this house. Go out there and build this, whatever, birdhouse. Dude, you can give me the right tools all day long, but if I don't know how to use the tools, and if I don't know what the end result should look like and how to get there, it's not going to happen. It's going to look like a mess. It's going to look like a mess. So when you think about it, if somebody's just giving you the tools, because oftentimes you hear that, we give you the tools. We've said it before, but it takes more than that. It takes more than knowing the tools, because honestly, you listen to the podcast and you get that. You can get the tools, but it's the how to use the tools that really, really matters. That's why when people go into the academy, they often tell us that they thought they were doing things right, or they didn't see the progress until they got into the academy. And then they were like, oh my gosh, now that I know how to properly do this stuff, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I actually had a therapist reach out to me the other day and ask about getting certified in the Nacho Kids method. So we need to talk about that, David.
Very cool. We do. All right. Well, that's enough about the Nacho Kids Academy. And again, you can find that at nachokidsacademy.com. And of course, all of our stuff, you can find at nachokids.com. All right. So let's get into today's interview.
Today we have stepmom Britt. Hey, Britt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Lori?
Doing well. So tell us a little bit about your blend, how long you've been blending, how many step kids, bio kids, hours kids, all that happy stuff.
Yeah. So my husband and I have been together for about 4.5 years. And he has my stepdaughter who's 18, stepdaughter 17, stepdaughter 15, stepson 8. And I have a 2-year-old that has a different biological father from a time that my husband and I were apart. However, my husband has raised him since he's been with him since before he was born. So we kind of consider him an ours baby. And then we have our first technically ours baby on the way, and we are due in about 2 months.
Okay. You really threw me with that bio son too, because I'm like, wait a minute, they've been together 4.5 years. What have you been doing, Britt?
Yeah. So, and I'm sure we'll get into this as we talk, but our time apart was the result of not figuring out how we were supposed to do this blend. And my husband thinking that he needed to take some time to just be a dad yeah, so we spent about 6 months not together. And that is when I, surprise, got pregnant with my bio son.
Wow. And when you found out you were pregnant,
hmm
were y'all already talking about getting back together or?
No, not at all. So we worked for the same company. However, we didn't really have any crossover. So we would kind of just see each other in passing.
Mhm.
So I want to say it was, and I use the word relationship loosely, but my relationship with my son's bio dad was very short lived and it was very unhealthy and actually ended in a phone call to the police. So,
Ooh.
yeah. So around the time that I found out I was pregnant, my husband and I had kind of reconnected on a little bit of a friend level, but just really to where we would see each other in passing at work and where we were finally able to say, hey, how are you? How was your weekend?
Mm-hmm.
So as things were falling apart with my son's bio dad and kind of getting to a dangerous level, I had confided in my husband about that. And, I can't even tell you how far along I was with my bio son when I would say we got back together. It kind of just happened.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of just in each other's lives and knew that it was meant to be. And it was.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it all worked out.
I'm glad that your husband is raising him as an hours kid, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So he now has visits with his bio dad. And I have to say, bio dad has really gotten his life together. He's engaged and to a woman that really cares for my son. And so I'm very grateful for that. And because of my experience with my stepkids and with their bio mom, we try really hard to have a good relationship with my son's bio dad and his fiance and to give him a different experience.
Great. Well, I have to ask you this. Does
Sure.
your son call the soon-to-be stepmom mom? I know he's only 2.
I don't think so. Yeah, he actually just turned 2 a month ago. So his vocabulary is just starting to get where you can understand who he's talking about when he says something, but they came up with a different nickname for her. So I'm sure that along the way, he'll do that. He'll call her mom. I think the older he gets, he'll start to have an understanding of who everyone is and everyone's role in his life. And then he'll kind of piece it all together because he does call my husband dad or daddy, even though we have a nickname for him, just kind of out of respect for that same. I would expect to be the only one that my bio son calls mom. So we have a nickname. I think just the older he gets, he'll figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you're pregnant.
I am.
So you've got another baby on the way.
We do. We're super excited.
Is this one a boy?
It is another boy. Yeah,
Awesome.
so that'll be 2 boys for me. And so now we're having to decide, should we try for another one? See if we can have a girl together. But because I would love to have a girl, but it would probably just be a boy too.
You never know. I'm all for trying, girl. Do it. Let us know.
Hey, the practicing part is the fun part. So
that's what David would say. Thank God he's not on here right now.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, even though I am having my second boy, we're very grateful for it. We didn't just get pregnant really easily. And so we prayed for him for a long time. And so we're really excited to meet him here in a couple months.
Oh, that's so sweet. So your bio son, that's 2, goes to his dad's every other weekend and probably a week here, a week there kind of thing, right?
We started about a year ago doing 3 short, basically dinner visits a week. And so we're on kind of a long-term step-up plan where he will eventually have 50-50 as long as everything goes as planned. And so right now he's doing 2 overnights a week and a 2-hour dinner visit. But his overnights, he comes home at like 7 the next morning.
All right.
So it's not a whole weekend, not a whole 24 hours yet.
And I know from experience, it's hard for your child to be that young and him to have to go with the other parent.
It is so hard. It's easier now than it was when he was really little, though, especially because I would consider that I was abused in my relationship with his bio dad. And, I hear you talk a lot on your podcast about all of the things that the family court system needs to change. And to me, my experience, that's one of them. So I actually had the judge tell me when we went to court for custody, well, he didn't abuse the baby. So he's going to have to do that before we intervene.
Yeah. Is that not the stupidest thing you've ever heard?
Yeah. Yep. It is.
Yeah.
So, and we've been really lucky that bio dad has really, I think all of that was kind of a wake up call for him and really has pulled his life together. And in fact, we invited him and his fiance over Christmas morning to spend some time over at our house. And so I've been really grateful that we've been able to evolve to that place and get, hopefully we continue that momentum going forward.
That is huge in any situation.
Right.
But especially in your situation where you got pregnant on, we'll use the TV show Friends break with your husband.
Right.
I am so impressed with you, but especially your husband, because I can see most guys be like, no, he's not coming in my house.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was very rough, whenever, especially when we were going through the court process. I mean, and by the end of the court process, we ended up talking with each other outside of the attorneys and said, okay, mediation is this date. Let's have a plan and show up at mediation. And it was like equal parts. The court creates problems when you're going through that process. They create animosity between the two parties where there maybe wasn't any before.
Amen.
Or maybe where there was only a little bit. They definitely blow things out of proportion. And we weren't supposed to talk to each other without attorneys, but we did anyway. So like I said, it was equal parts, just tired of the animosity that kept building that we finally realized wasn't even coming from us. And the other part was we both ran out of money. It's so expensive. And we never even got to the final orders portion. And we were both in between, 10 and 15 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's sad.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of that could have gone into a college fund or something.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I'll joke about how I could send my son to Harvard if I wouldn't have had to pay attorney's fees. But granted, luckily, every time we went, his dad has had to pay at least a good portion of my attorney's fees. So,
okay.
But still, I'm thinking he's the one that acted out. He's the one that should have to pay all of them. But, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if both bio mom and bio dad are not working toward the same objective, it's really hard you're just not on the same page. And because of my experience as a stepmom and seeing my husband struggle financially for so many years while bio mom went on vacations and things like that, I never wanted to be viewed that way. So soon as the court order, of course, with child support from my bio son's dad came through, we filed to terminate child support. So I just thought, we can support him and, don't need money from him. And it just, if you're in that position where you're okay without it, it just creates animosity as someone has to write a check every month. And so I thought from my experience with us having to pay child support and at many times known, especially when COVID first happened and my husband, was basically laid off from his job, me having to step in and pay his child support, it doesn't create good feelings. So I thought, well, if we can eliminate that, that's going to be a huge step forward for us.
Yeah. Now, granted, I would think if your son had to have braces, that your ex would help pay for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe when he's old enough to have a vehicle, that your ex will contribute.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's good.
He's always offered.
Yes. And unfortunately, some people don't have that relationship.
Yep.
And they have to push the child support or they won't get any help at all.
Absolutely. Yep.
So let's talk about your stepkids. How often do you have them?
So not at all at the time being. However, when I met my husband, they were all 50-50. And the oldest, who's now 18, was only 13.
Okay.
So when I first came into my stepkids' life, we were all really close. I had never dated someone with kids before. So this was like a brand new experience to me. And I was kind of shell-shocked. And I also didn't have kids of my own yet. And so just little things that you wouldn't think anything of, like how things function in the household on a day-to-day basis, I look back now that I have a biological kid, and I'm like, it didn't have to be like that. That was chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So, things like my husband's relationship with biomom when they were married, she was very emotionally abusive toward him. And unfortunately, that's something that the 3 girls were all taught to replicate toward their dad. And so
Wow.
I can look back, and when I met them, they were like 13, 12, and 9. And I look back at some of the things that I can remember them saying or doing. And it's like, I can't believe a kid would talk to their dad. I wouldn't talk to my dad that way now. And I'm in my 30s.
Right.
And now that I've had some experience, of being around biomom and kind of hearing how she talks, it's like an exact replication of the phrases she used and the demeanor that she uses and things like that. So my husband, I think, just didn't know any better at the time. That's kind of how he had been trained to be spoken to, and how he had been trained to be talked about. And that was all he knew. So that was what it was.
Yeah, he was used to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I, of course, am biased, but my husband's a good looking guy, and he's in great shape. And, he was always told that he was fat and ugly and no one else would ever want him and things like that. And that's just, after a while of hearing that, it starts to kind of speak to your soul, and you start to kind of feel like maybe those things are true.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. He and I first started dating. I can remember giving him a compliment, like when he walked by me or something, and he would look at me as if I was out to get him or something like that, because he, like, what do you want from me? Because he had not heard anything like that in so many years.
Yeah. I get it. I 100% get it.
Yeah.
My relationship with Jackson's dad versus my relationship with David is night and day.
Yeah.
And you're so
Absolutely.
used to not, how do I say this? Not being shown that you matter,
Right.
to when you're shown you do, you're like, okay, what's up? Something's wrong. They're up to
Right.
something.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It makes you suspicious.
Yeah, that's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it does. It makes you suspicious.
Yeah.
And on guard, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I can recall when my husband and I first started dating, just seeing some things like that and kind of going, well, that's weird. That's different.
Mhm.
And one of the stories that he's told me, from the time he was with biomom, was that my stepkids have never had like discipline, structure, told the word no, anything like that, rules. I can remember when I first started staying over at my husband's house when we were dating, and everybody was up until 1, 2 in the morning every school night. That was just kind of the way that things ran. And then no one could get up in the morning, and there was yelling and screaming and fighting all the time.
Mhm.
And I mean, my parents, my upbringing was, I would say my parents were pretty strict when I was a kid. But one thing that my mom always did was she would come into my room and sit down on my bed after school and say, hey, how was your day? Who'd you sit with at lunch? Who are your friends? We know what's going on in your life. And I didn't realize until this experience of being a stepmom that like that's truly being able to communicate and to talk like that is a learned skill.
Mhm.
You don't know how to do it if your parent hasn't taken the time to sit down with you and teach you those things, just communication skills. And so my stepkids were never able to sit down and have a conversation about how they were feeling or what was going on and reason about anything.
Mhm.
And it took me a long time to figure out that is a learned skill. That's something that you have to be taught. That's not something that people just inherently know.
Right. Yeah. And it's very important to talk to your kids. And I'm not saying drill them, but
Sure.
just let them know you're there. And if
Yeah.
you would have told your mom, it was okay, I just don't feel like talking today, she probably would have been like, okay.
Yeah, I'll be in the kitchen. Come get me when you do.
Right. The next day, she would have done the same thing because she wanted you to be able to talk with her about things.
Absolutely. Well, that's a healthy
Yeah.
relationship. And now it's important. I didn't realize when I was a kid, and I didn't realize until I was a parent, how important it is to teach that to your kids when they're young.
Right. Yeah. I guess your husband was with Biomom at least 10 years.
Yeah, about 15, actually.
Okay. And stepson is 8. So he was probably 3 when they got divorced?
Yes. He was right at 3. I met him right as he was turning 4.
Okay. So he's kind of used to the situation of mom and dad not being together.
Yeah. Yep.
But he doesn't come for visitation either?
So he did up until very recently. So when all 3 of my stepdaughters decided to go live with mom full time, and that's a whole different story. But after that happened, he continued to be 50-50. But I think I had a feeling at the time that it was about a year ago that we made that transition where he was the only one coming and he was still 50-50. He and I had a really close relationship at the time. And it was probably about 10, 11 months ago that he started coming over and just treating me like absolute crap. And it was very obvious that it was only aimed at me. So he would come over and make accusations and say really strange things, or he would be, kind and funny to everyone else. And then he would give me the silent treatment. And so at the time he was very involved in sports. He went to a school that was like a 35-minute drive from our house. My son was only about a year old. And so I was doing all of his driving, sports driving, basically all of the things that, a mom would do without being mom. I was familiar with the Nacho method at the time. However, I had not yet been able to implement it. And I also kind of felt at the time like, what I had seen, just the toxicity that had come from the other house and unfortunately had gotten to my stepdaughters. I was like determined I'm not going to let that happen to him. He's a sweet kid. We're going to teach him that being kind is a good thing because he's not taught that at the other house. And we're going to teach him things like kindness and integrity and what being a part of this family unit, what that actually means. And so I was doing all of that stuff for him. And so when he was over, he spent most of his time with me while dad was at work. My husband and I own a business. He's out, it's a construction business. So he's out in the field during the day. I run the office side of things. So I have the ability to work from home, which just kind of, makes it easier for me to do the driving at weird times, run here, run there, things like that. So that's what we were doing at the time. And about 10, 11 months ago, he started treating me really differently. And, like I mentioned, I was familiar with the Nacho Kids method. However, my husband didn't, I don't think he wasn't on board because he disagreed with it. I just think he didn't fully understand it at the time. And so we had many a conversation where I was like, look, this is not enjoyable for anyone anymore. I really need to take a step back. I need you to pick him up from school. I need you to do these things. And so during the summertime, I ended up, and he was still 50-50, I ended up finding him a daycare to go to 4 days a week. And then on Fridays, he would stay home with my son and I, and we would all do something together. And then we would do something with dad when dad got off work. And so that worked very well. And then it just kind of gradually over time got worse. And, his treatment of me got worse. And we ended up getting him into counseling with a counselor that we know and trust. And she's just phenomenal with kids. So we thought this is going to be a really good thing. And it was for a while, but he, ended up telling the counselor. And this brings me to, on your questionnaire that you sent out, one of the questions on there was like, what makes your blended family situation unique? And I was thinking about that. And in the Nacho Kids Facebook group and several other stepmom groups that I've been a part of on Facebook, there are so many people that talk about the things that biomom says to the stepkids that they come over, that they really take to heart and then come over and repeat or act upon. And I think something really different about our situation that I haven't heard of from other people, it's been biomom's family that's been doing most of the talking and putting most of those negative things into my stepson's head, specifically like her brothers, his uncles. And they are like, our counselor calls them an enmeshed family. So they spend like 6-7 days a week together. They do everything together. So they have a very heavy influence on all of the kids and the way they think and what they do. And so my stepson ended up telling the counselor during one of their sessions that he's told by the uncles, here's these 5 things that you're to go over and say to Britt this week. And there were also a list of things that and they were all like really inappropriate, unkind things. And he also had a list of things he was supposed to say to my son, my 2-year-old. And things like he was told to, take toys out of his hands. He was told to push him. He was told to do this and that to him. And, unfortunately, we didn't figure out that he was being coached to do all of those things until we kind of saw it unfolding and happening in our house. So we ended up going to like an every other weekend visitation schedule with him. And then unfortunately, things kind of just kept escalating. And this one day, my stepson was over and I walked through the playroom that he was sitting playing in. And I said, hey, and I said his name. And I was coming in to ask him if he would like a snack. And he just like panicked, ducked, covered his face with his hands. And I was like, really caught off guard, but I was like, are you okay? I'm sorry. Did I startle you? What's going on? And then I started noticing a pattern every time he would come back from his mom's. That's how he would act, and only toward me. Like he was scared to death every time I said something to him. And, through my husband talking with him, my husband and I talking about the situation to our counselor, my stepson ended up admitting to my husband that he was coached to come over and say that he's afraid of me and that I abuse him. And so that was the point where we were like, okay, now this is really getting serious. So we just about a month and a half ago made a change where my husband spends a few hours with him every other weekend away from our home. So for the time being, he's not coming over to our home anymore. And I really, really struggled with that when we made that change, because I feel like I am almost by being supportive of that, putting a target on my back. Like, well, she said that the stepson can't come over anymore, which that's not the case. And in reality, I always had adored my stepkids from day one. And
well, you could lose your kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can honestly look back and say that I did everything that I could to not let it get to this. But here we are. But at the point that we're at, it's like, I wish I could protect my stepson from everything that he's being taught and influenced by at the other house, but I can't. But I have to stop it here. I can't let it be passed down to my bio son. And then, of course, we've got the one on the way. So it has to stop here.
That had to be a very, very tough decision for your husband and for you, because
yeah, absolutely.
You're grieving the relationship you used to have with your stepson.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling your husband, look, what do we do? I can't have him around my kid.
Right.
And even not because he was hurting your kid per se, but because of the crap he could say to make you lose your kid.
Sure. I mean, and that was a part of it too, though, when he was over every other weekend. I think part of it is just it evolved the way it did because he's been told these things by bio mom's family for so long. And part of it was now that he's, when we did every other weekend, he's spending so much more time over there. That influence is so much greater than the one from our house. And so, I started noticing this pattern. And I really believe that once or twice something's coincidence. And more than that, it's kind of, okay, there's probably something to this. But we started noticing that, he'd be playing with my son and I would run upstairs to switch the laundry or just something really quick like that. And every single time I or my husband would turn our backs, all of a sudden, my 2-year-old is screaming and crying and holding something that hurts. And my stepson, and he's only 8, and kids that age, they can't lie very well at all.
Right.
And so my son would be holding something that hurts. And my stepson would, have this weird look on his face and say something like, he tripped and fell. And it's like, you can tell, there was more to it. So it got to the point that when he was over every other weekend, I couldn't even run into the kitchen to stir dinner and leave them alone for that long. And then, of course, when my stepson started acting like he was afraid to be in the same room as me, then it was okay. I told my husband, okay, babe, now neither one of us can be alone with him. So, that means I can't do driving. I can't do this and this. But And I hate that we've arrived here. At this point, I realize that I can't protect him from, everything going on at the other house. Like, that's got to be you and bio mom have got to like get it together and get on the same page. Like, I can't help anymore, but I have to protect my son.
Yeah. And yourself.
And myself. Right.
So this happened about what'd you say, a month ago?
Yeah, it was about a month and a half ago that we made the change from every other weekend to my husband spending a few hours with stepson 8 away from our home. And honestly, it's been a really positive change for everyone. I think even for my husband, because when stepson 8 was over here every other weekend, he and my husband didn't really spend much time together. Mm-hmm. Stepson 8 kind of spent the majority of the weekend like watching TV and didn't want to do anything that the family was doing. And during the second half of his full day that he was here, that was when my son went to a visit with his bio dad. And so I would just be gone for the rest of the day. I would hang out with friends or something like that, or just go shopping. But it got to the point where it's like, and I see that in so many I see that suggestion, I guess, in so many stepmom groups where, it's like, well, just take that, make that your me time. And I think that's all very well intentioned. But unfortunately, in reality, it doesn't always feel that way. My husband and I run a business together. So by Saturday morning, I'm like, I don't want to talk about the business. I just want quality time with my husband, because our Monday through Friday time, unfortunately, usually in the evenings too, is all eaten up by doing things for the business. And so it was hard for me to be gone away from the house, for 6 or 8 hours for a big chunk of the day, because my stepson was acting that way, because he didn't want me around. It's not that anything happened between us where it's like, let's all take a break from each other. It's that he's coming in coached from the other house, that is his visit with his dad, and I should not be allowed to be in the home at that time. And it was really tough for me, especially lately, because I'm pregnant. So of course, the bigger my belly has gotten, it is just uncomfortable to have to go walk around for that long or sit in the car for that long because I can't go home yet. So there's just kind of a lot of factors to it. And my husband and I remember the last time my stepson was over here for the weekend, and I was gone for about 8 hours during the day because I felt like I couldn't come home because it was so uncomfortable. And I also was afraid to spend too much time at home because I know that he and, his mom's family are cooking up accusations that I'm abusive to him or that I've done this or that or whatever. So I think I was saying the last weekend that he came over, my husband and I, it would cause us to argue with each other after he left. And I understand logically my husband's position. Like, it's an impossible position. If I am protective of my wife, then my kids are going to use that as an excuse to hate me and to not come over, and it's all going to be my fault. But if I'm protective of my kid and kind of just don't, let my wife fend for herself, then, she's upset with me. So I understand logically that it's an impossible position for him to be in. It's been very hard on my heart, because I feel like as a mom myself now, I would never let my kids treat anyone the way that my stepkids have treated me, especially someone that I love.
Right.
I can't imagine seeing my son say those things to my husband and just kind of sitting by. I can't imagine that.
Yeah. But at the same time, if your kid did that, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine not seeing my kid.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's that catch. You can't win. No,
you can't win. So I think
you're stuck in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the shorter visits away from the house have actually been better for my husband's relationship with his son, because for 3-4 hours they have nothing to do but talk to each other and hang out. Mm-hmm. And there are no interruptions. There are no distractions. There's no, okay, I was told to say this, so I better say that before I leave.
Right.
There's none of that. There's just time for them to do things together. And my husband was telling me that he told stepson 8 the other day, hey, next time I see you, bring your homework and I'll help you with whatever you need help with. So I think, all of that is just Hopefully they'll be able to kind of focus on the positivity in their relationship without having all of the other things.
Has stepson asked why he's not coming over every other weekend or why you're not around?
Yes. So the first weekend that we decided to do this, and we have a pretty fabulous counselor here locally that has been guiding us through this for the last couple of years and helping us to kind of try to come out the other side with our marriage still intact. Because I don't know that we would have been able to without his help. But, his advice, and I think it was very wise and insightful, was for my husband to kind of pose it back as a question. Well, why do you think you're not coming over today?
Oh,
and
I like
kind of
that.
see if what his understanding was. Because, when you tell an 8-year-old something, they can regurgitate it back, but that doesn't mean they understand it.
Right.
So, my husband explained kind of why we are where we are and that, hopefully over time we'll be able to, kind of go back to some semblance of normalcy. I look back now and there have been so many signs along the way that things were starting to get really serious. And I think just because everything, coming from my stepkid's other house has always been so chaotic and like blown out of proportion and just weird.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just kind of ignored those things, and my husband did too, because we're so used to it. You get desensitized to things that would normally like stun you.
Right.
And back in probably about 6 months ago, when my stepson was still 50-50 with us, he came over one week, and he was Sunday to Sunday. So he came over on a Sunday, and it was like the following Friday before he started speaking to me. And he had just been horrible to me, toward just me all week. And so finally by Friday, I was like, white flag up in the air, like, what is going on? Like, what gives, kid? What is happening right now? And we knew that a few people over at the other house had COVID. And he looked at me real seriously and he says, you called my sisters and you told them you hope they die of COVID. I was like, what? And it's like, part of me was really angry, but the other part of me was like, that is so absurd. I don't even know how to respond. So all week he had been punishing me for something that never occurred.
And it's bio mom doing this? Or the uncles?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure who that one came from, honestly. I'm not sure that he was sure anymore.
Well, when your husband changed the visitation from 50-50 to only seeing him outside of the home,
right?
How did bio mom react to that?
So she was very much not understanding, but I think knowing kind of how she does things the way that I do now, I think it was about, well, he needs to spend time with his dad too, as much as it was about, I don't want to have him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband and bio mom, they used to sit down and have, I'm going to use the word conversations very loosely here, but conversations, but that would mostly consist of her kind of shaking her finger at my husband and giving him a list of things he was doing wrong. And so a couple of years ago, he had kind of put a stop to that. He was like, you know what, we need to parallel parent. Like, this is not constructive. You do your thing at your house. I'll do my thing at my house. And we knew that a lot of what's happened with my stepdaughters was a direct result of bio mom telling them, well, your dad should be doing this for you and he's not, and that's all his fault, and things like that. And so my husband and bio mom actually sat down and had a conversation. This was actually a real conversation about 2 weeks ago. And my husband says it was different than any conversation they have ever had, including in their 15 years of being together. And
wow.
Yeah, it was actually constructive. He explained where he was coming from and why we had arrived where we were. And I don't want to say the funny thing, but because it's not funny, but the interesting thing is, when I mentioned earlier that stepson 8, when he would come over and he would be playing with my son, there were always, like, every time we would turn our backs, all of a sudden my son is crying and stepson 8 is looking incredibly guilty. And when I had first told my husband about that a long time ago, it was almost like he didn't believe me. He was like, well, my son could never do anything like that.
Right.
And he finally had witnessed it for himself. And so that was part of his conversation with Biomom was, this is what was happening at our house. And he told me that Biomom kind of got a funny look on her face and said that she has a toddler at her home as well with her new boyfriend. And I guess stepson 8 has been the same thing's been happening with their toddler. So while I think it would have been very constructive for them to sit down and have this conversation a long time ago, I don't think it would have turned out the same way. I think that each of them had to come to some hard realizations about what had been going on before they were able to have that conversation.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I'm sitting here thinking that if it wasn't Biomom telling stepson to act this way and do this stuff,
right,
then this has caused her problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it was her, then it bit her in the butt.
Yeah. I think she was part of it, but probably in the way of agreeing with things that were said by other people so that she couldn't be blamed.
I wonder how much of it's coming from the stepdaughters.
Quite a bit, to my understanding.
Yeah, because we haven't talked about them yet. What happened with them to want to go live with mom 100% of the time?
So the oldest, I'm not sure. She and I were very, very close. And when, the first couple of years my husband and I were together before we spent some time apart, she and I were close. And I knew that she had always had a difficult relationship with Biomom. And so there were times where she had said things to me like, I wish you were my mom. And that would have been, my husband and I have an age difference. So I was only 12 when she was born. So that would have been kind of weird. But I would always respond to things like that with, your mom loves you. You guys are going to get through this. Trying to always be positive and encouraging. And when my husband, chose to end our relationship for that period of time, that was one of the hardest parts for me, was being away from my oldest stepdaughter because she and I were so close. And when my husband and I got back together and I kind of was integrated back into the kids' lives too, she was like a completely different person. And I remember asking my husband, stepdaughter 17 just said this or did this. That is very out of character for her. What happened? And he would say, and this was about 2.5 years ago, so it hasn't been that long, but he would just say, I don't know. I think she's just kind of struggling at school. She started hanging out with some girls at school that were known to be very problematic. And so I think that played a role, but it certainly wasn't the whole thing. But one thing I do know for sure is that she did not want me to ever have a baby.
Oh.
And that had been voiced to me many times. And so I want to say she only met my bio son maybe twice. And then she would start, right before they were all supposed to come back to dad's for the week, she would text and say, hey, I'm going to stay over at a friend's tonight. And then that one night turned into 7 nights. And finally, she texted and told my husband that she wouldn't be back. And I think because of the way that I was raised and the relationship that I had and still have with my mom, it was really, really hard for me to understand people that function like that. Because I think if we would have all sat down together, we would have all agreed that she should live with her mom right now and just come visit. But hey, come over on Saturdays for dinner. Let's go to your games. Let's go be a part of our life. And, we want to be a part of yours. But they have a very all or nothing mindset. And I think that comes from Biomom's family. And our counselor explains it like they're like a mafia mentality family. So you're either with us or you're against us.
Yeah.
And so I think that there has always been tremendous pressure on all of my stepkids, all 4 of them, to not enjoy their time with us, to not enjoy their time with dad if dad wasn't doing what Biomom wanted at the time. And so it just kind of, so it kind of unfolded that way. And it was just really strange to me because it was so sudden. And my other 2 stepdaughters continued to live with us for about a year longer, but it was kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And Biomom has an office position at a gym that my 2 younger stepdaughters both train at, and one of them works at. And so it got to where even when they were with us 50-50, they were spending 7 days a week over at this gym and just, like making up something really outrageously ridiculous, like a 16-hour practice at the gym that they had to go for all that time. And my husband never fact-checked anything, but it wasn't because he didn't care or wasn't trying to be a good dad. I think he just already knew in his heart that they didn't want to be there, and he was trying to protect himself from getting hurt, so he almost didn't want to know.
Right.
And so at this time that they were living with us still, none of my stepkids, keep in mind, had ever been told the word no, had discipline. And by discipline, I don't even mean punishment. I just mean like, hey, it's okay to do this, but not this.
Right.
Never been told anything like that. And my husband has actually told me a story about the time that he was married to Biomom, where I can't remember what one of the kids was doing, but one of my stepdaughters was like 10-ish at the time, and was doing something. And he sat down and, was getting on to her and told her she was going to, this is going to be your consequence because you did this. Biomom came in and grabbed stepdaughter from him and held her on her lap and said, you are, and this is in front of all the kids, said, you are ruining your relationship with your kids when you discipline them. So stop. Like, you will not tell my children that they can't do things.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I think because my stepdaughters, by the time my husband, got out of that relationship and got himself mentally healthy, I think my stepdaughters had just already been ingrained.
Yeah.
And so even though he wasn't with Biomom anymore, when my 3 stepdaughters were over at our house, it was like Biomom might as well have been there.
Yeah.
So there was one day in particular where something had happened with my stepdaughters. And I think my husband kind of just hit his breaking point. Like, okay, you guys, enough is enough. Nobody can live like this. Mm-hmm. And so he decided to tell them that they were going to be grounded from going to a practice at the gym. Not forever, not all week, one practice. And he even texted Biomom and said, I just want to let you know as a courtesy, the girls got in trouble. This is why they will not be there tonight, but they'll see you tomorrow. And she texted him back, oh, you're doing the right thing. They really need some structure. And then not even 30 minutes later, here was Biomom at our door to pick them up. And they left and never came back. And we have not heard from them since. So that to me goes back to, but I kind of knew that after they left that day that they wouldn't be back, because there was quite a bit of Facebook posting about, how awful our house was and how awful my husband is and how, we're not real family. The people at the gym are the real family, and very much normal things for a teenager to think, but that's why you have to be a parent, even to a teenager.
Right.
And
that's horrible.
Yeah, it was really tough. But again, for me, it's like sometimes living in my own house with all of the ways that these things were handled was like being in a foreign country. Because it's like, okay, go live with your mom. I understand that's what you feel is best for you right now, but come over for dinner. My son was only, had just turned 1 at the time that my 2 stepdaughters left. And the really hard part for me as a mom was that he adored them.
Right.
He was all smiles when they walked into the room, even though they rarely gave him the time of day. And same thing with stepson 8. He adored stepson 8. And so that's been really hard for me as a mom. And of course, my son's only 2. So it's not like he has the vocabulary to be able to have a conversation about this, but it's still hard. Still hard when you can't explain something to him, but I know that he knows that something is going on and someone's missing.
Right. Yeah. And he doesn't know why.
Right.
I hate to say this way, but it's almost like they died to him. So now he's having to grieve that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been something that my husband and I have had to kind of figure out a game plan for. When he feels like stepson 8, if and when he feels like stepson's 8 is ready to come over again and kind of be reintroduced to our household and our family, we're going to have to make sure, like, he's going to, and the counselor told him that he's going to have to see a behavioral pattern change over time, not one weekend, not 2 weekends, but over time consistently. Because, now we've got one more kid at home and another one on the way that didn't do anything to deserve being in this really weird, crazy psychodynamic.
Right. So when Biomom came to pick the kids up after your husband had put them on restriction from that one practice.
Yeah.
She texted him and said, "Oh, you did the right thing." And then she shows up at the door. Did he not say, "What in the crap?"
He thought it. I think experience has taught him that it's kind of a waste of his breath to say things.
Yeah.
So, he used to try to say things to her, and everything was always someone else's fault. And so I think he kind of just gave up.
I'm sure that if he would have said, "Well, you just texted me that I did the right thing, that they need discipline or whatever," then she would have said, "Oh, that wasn't me."
Right.
Or something.
So he actually, when they had their sit down a couple weeks ago, he brought that up to her. And because she was, telling him that these girls are out of control and they're so disrespectful, and all of these things are going on in her home now because they're there full time. And my husband's response was, "Well, you're the one that came and picked them up. You're the one that did that. Like, what do you think that taught them?" And she said that she says now that she just assumed that after she got his text, he had gone ahead and given them permission to go, which I don't think she actually believes that. I think it was just kind of an easy button to not have to be responsible for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Bitter in the butt, like we said.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now she's complaining about how the kids behave, but she created that.
Yep. Well, they're like, parents joke all the time about how your kid is like a mini version of you. And I mean, my son's only 2, and there are things that he, like when the dogs start barking, he'll get onto the dogs. And I'm like, well, he's repeating what I say. Parents joke about that. But when your kid starts having behavioral problems, it stops being a joke. It becomes something very serious. And unfortunately, my stepdaughters have not been equipped with the skills and knowledge that they need to function in the real world, because the real world definitely does not function like Biomom's house. And so, I'm afraid that's going to be very hard for them when they go to college and have jobs and are in their own relationships. And I hope that life experience teaches them this is not the way to be a human, before they hurt other people and bring other people into it. Because my husband and I both have a fear that, the 3 stepdaughters are going to end up with people and treat them like he was treated.
Right.
And that they're going to carry that forward.
Which is to be expected.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens a lot of the time.
It just breaks my heart for those kids because they don't know any better.
Right.
And more than likely, they're going to have somebody that truly loves them that they are going to treat like crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate. I've had to learn, and then, of course, relearn and remind myself that I can't fix what I didn't break.
That's right.
And a lot of their treatment of me is not even about me. I just happen to be the person that married their dad. And so I'm the easy target, because it's been super hurtful, the way that they've acted even toward me. Because I kind of thought, when my 2 stepdaughters got picked up by their mom that day and left, I thought, okay, they're mad at dad, but they'll probably reach out to me. Maybe I can, help to kind of diffuse things, and we can make something work here, and they can learn from this. But that never happened. And then I kind of learned through stepson 8 and the things that he was repeating when he came over, that they blame the entirety of the situation on me.
When we were talking earlier about how stepdaughter changed after you and your husband had your break.
Right.
I wonder if when you left, it's almost like she lost a mom. And you already said she didn't want you to have a kid, and you come back and you're having a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a double whammy for her.
Yeah, I kind of think that too. And that's probably part of it. According to my husband, during that time, she started going to counseling with her mom because they had always had a really tough relationship. And she and her mom were like BFFs whenever I started seeing her again. So I think that probably had a big part to do with it. I'm sure she probably in counseling told her mom some of the things that she had told me about their relationship. And I'm sure Biomom did not appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, there are lots of step family situations where the kids are taught to believe that kindness towards stepmom is a betrayal of bio mom. And I think that absolutely happened with my stepkids.
You are so right. And even if they're not told that, those loyalty bonds make them feel that way. If they know that bio mom doesn't like stepmom, it's, I can't be nice to her. My mom doesn't like her.
Absolutely.
Or I can't like her because that will hurt my mom because she doesn't.
Yeah. So I really do try to make it my mission to not let my son's stepmom feel that way. Just because he's 2 and he doesn't understand. And sometimes transitions are really hard for a kid of any age. And my son being so young, he just doesn't understand what's going on. And so there have been, his stepmom picks him up once a week instead of bio dad. And so there have been a few times where, he's crying as he gets out of the car. And I can recall my stepkids doing similar things and bio mom just hugging them while my husband and I stood there awkwardly waiting for them to get out of the car for like 20, 30 minutes. Bio mom hugging and comforting, and I'm going to miss you so much. And that just makes it super hard. And something that I have always told my son is, we have lots of fun when we're together. And tonight you're going to have fun and mommy's going to have fun, and then we'll have fun together again. And I've told my stepson that many times as well. Of course, not calling myself mommy. But, there have been times when my bio son is crying as he gets out of the car and doesn't want to go to his stepmom. And I know that position. And I know no matter how much, you put a smile on your face, I know how that feels in your heart when, you've taken time out of your day to go show up for someone that you love and they don't want to go with you. It's a really crappy feeling. So I always tell my son, you're going to have so much fun, and get excited for him and stuff like that. And, he brings her flowers on Mother's Day and things like that, and cards, and we do gifts on holidays, because I just feel like all of that's really important. I know what it's like to be in the stepmom position. I know that it can at times be a very thankless job. And I just really don't ever want to see her being made to feel the way that I've been made to feel.
And I admire you for that.
Thank you.
No matter how much as a stepmom we tell ourselves, this isn't about you. It's not about you. It's not about you personally. Right. It's what you represent. But it still hurts. It doesn't take the hurt away.
Oh, it is so hard not to take it to heart.
What I found helped me was to honestly tell myself, these kids are hurting. You are an easy target. It's not about you. It's about what they're going through.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right.
So your husband hasn't talked to the daughters at all?
No. Nope. A while back, he had sent them some texts and messages. My younger 2 stepdaughters had never responded to anything. And then the oldest started writing nasty letters. And so one of the other stepkids had brought over a letter she had written. Gosh, this was right after she left. So my bio son was very, very little. And basically the whole, what the letter said to my husband. And now my son's bio dad is, a very active part of his life. And I'm very grateful for that. But at the time he wasn't. And at the time, I really, truly believed that my husband would be the only dad he ever had.
Right.
And so this letter that she sent over, said, you have 3 daughters and 1 son. You think you have 2 sons and you act like you have 2 sons. You have 1 son and you need to focus on the kid that's actually yours. And so having poured into my stepkids what I have over the years and invested so much of my time, energy, and love and caring into them, that was really hurtful to me, especially given the relationship that stepdaughter 18 and I had, for years.
Yeah, because it's like they're saying, it's okay that Britt did all this stuff for us, but you don't need to do nothing for her kid.
Exactly.
Do you wonder, obviously they know that their dad is not the father of your son.
Right. Yeah, that's never been a secret.
Do you think there's resentment with that?
Maybe. Something that's really strange to me that I haven't even mentioned to you is bio moms. I don't know if they're engaged or married now, but I'll just say her partner. Bio mom's partner and her had an affair while she was still married to my husband. And they carried a lot of it on in front of the kids. And I met my husband about 1 year after his divorce was finalized. Mm-hmm. But if you ask my stepkids, I was the home wrecker, and they are incredibly close to their stepdad. And it's me that came along and ruined everything, which is really weird. But I think it speaks to kind of the level of coaching that happens over there, because they really believe that.
Yeah.
And it was probably a few months before my stepdaughters left with their mom that day and never came back and wouldn't speak to my husband anymore. A few months before that, he was having them like plug in their phones at night and not be on them at night because they were sleeping through classes and failing classes and stuff during the day because they were up on their phones all night. And I mean, I would have been when I was a teenager too, if I could have been.
Yeah. So. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would be now sometimes if I could, be awake the next day. But he had seen in their phones that both of them had stepdad saved as daddy and my husband saved as bio dad in their phones. And so that was incredibly hurtful to him. But again, because this family, the way they've always done things is not to communicate with each other, he didn't say anything about it.
Right.
And I think that goes back to, like I mentioned earlier, it's not that he didn't care or that didn't hurt his feelings. He just didn't want to know anymore because he knew it would only hurt.
Right.
So that was kind of his way of putting up a wall and, okay, what I don't know can hurt me, although that's not the case.
You are not the first person or the 10th person that I know that the kids are convinced that the stepmom was the homewrecker.
Oh, yeah.
Even when the dates don't line up.
Right.
Or they know that Bob was in the picture with mom 2 years before Dad and Sue got together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what it is, but it's almost like bio mom can sleep with 500 guys, have them all around the kid, and they treat these guys, like they're awesome. But then dad marries stepmom, the only person that he's possibly had around the kids, and they treat her like crap. And like she's the one that was the homewrecker.
Right. That is very common.
It is. And
yeah, unfortunately.
It makes me question why the stepmom represents so much more than a stepdad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I think a big part of the problem is because of the way that historically stepmoms have been portrayed. And I think there's a clear definition on a mom-child relationship. There's a clear definition on an aunt and nephew relationship or aunt and niece. There's a clear definition of like a cousin relationship or a teacher-student relationship. But for some reason, even though there are so many blended families out there, there is no clear definition of a step-parent, step-child relationship. And so people try to fit it inside all of these boxes that it was never meant to fit in. It's its own relationship. And there's no reason that it can't be healthy and beautiful in its own way and wonderful. And, the more people in a child's life to be there for them and do things for them, the better, right? You would think.
Right.
When my stepdaughters were still living with us, stepdaughter 17 was not quite 16 yet. And she was working on getting her permit. And, I'd heard her complain quite a bit that, she didn't have enough driving experience. And my son was probably, I don't know, I would say no more than 6 months old whenever she started, working toward her permit hours and stuff like that. And I was the one who said, you know what, I think instead of trying to crank out, 10 hours on a weekend day, that's really overwhelming when you're a new driver. Why don't we just do a little bit every night? So every single night when my husband got home, after dinner, he would take care of the baby, and stepdaughter 17 and I would go out for, 20, 30 minutes and give her some driving experience. And so there were so many things like that while I love my husband and he's a wonderful dad, I can honestly tell you that I made 40 times the effort that he made with them.
Right.
We went to Target, we went to Starbucks, we went to In-N-Out, we went and did all of these things together. And it was like, they got mad at their dad over that one, taking a gym practice away. And it was like all of those things never happened. And it's like history
Wow.
has been rewritten. And that's been really incredibly hard and painful for me.
Yeah.
Like none of that ever mattered. So, and maybe someday when they're older and they've had life experience, they'll kind of start to put some of these things in perspective. Maybe not. I don't know. I think the way BioMom's family operates is, like our counselor said, very much like mafia style, like you're either in or out.
Yeah.
You can't have multiple relationships with multiple families. And something that I see is BioMom has several siblings. Those siblings and their spouses and their kids, they're all part of, what they're doing together 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I rarely ever heard about my stepkids spending time at anybody else's house.
Yeah.
So only BioMom's family.
I'm just perplexed.
You and me both.
I really do hope that when your stepdaughters get older, that they will realize things that they could have done differently and they appreciate what you did do for them.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so too.
And I hope that the relationship with stepson and dad improve through all this and that y'all were able to get back to where y'all were too.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, my husband and I have often said, and I think that this is probably a common thing in marriages within a blended family, but it's like the little day-to-day annoyances that, like a married couple would argue about. We've never argued about because we don't have time. It's not that those things aren't there. We have never had the time or energy to just focus on our marriage and, building a marriage and relationship with each other. We have always had so much time and energy eaten up by all of the drama coming from the other house and the things that the stepkids are coming back with and accusations and things like that. It's like we haven't even had the time to focus on our own relationship. And so it's not that those annoyances and things, like in any marriage that need to be resolved or worked out, it's not that they aren't there. They have been swept under the rug for so long that it's created other issues in our marriage that we've had to work through. Because a person only has so much energy to focus on really emotionally heavy things like this for so long.
Right.
And then after that, it's like, okay, I can't do any more today.
Mm-hmm.
But when my stepkids were 50-50, it was like, it felt, especially up kind of toward the end, it felt emotionally heavy way more than 50% of the time, because we were either, trying to kind of, and I see a lot of stepmoms say similar things to this, but after they left, we were trying to, put things back together and kind of regroup from how tough the weekend had been. And then before they came, it was like, I always felt like my husband and I were on two different planets, because he was just like, I say he would like, not like that I described it like this, but he was like, be skipping around like a giddy schoolgirl, all excited that they're coming back. And then I would be over here just dreading it because I already knew what the week would bring. But I think that because, I wasn't able to, implement the Nacho method earlier on than I did, I think he just had a very different experience with them than I did, because he would be gone and working during the day. So by the time he got home, the hard stuff was done.
Right.
And all the driving was done. And the cleaning up after them, their lunches, their dinner, their snacks, all of that was done. They were already at sports practice. Dinner was cooked. Homework was done. So it was just all that was left to do was to sit and eat dinner and hang out for a little bit before everyone went to bed.
Yeah.
And my experience was very different than that.
Yeah. You were doing all the heavy work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They were wore out by the time he got home.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think my stepdaughters absolutely caught on to the fact that I felt like I couldn't say anything to them, because I can recall, up kind of toward the end of their time living with us, I can recall watching them like go into the kitchen, open a snack, look me dead in the eye and throw a piece of trash onto the floor and walk away. Because they knew that I felt like I couldn't say anything to them. Like, if I would say, hey, stepdaughter 16, can you please pick up your trash and put it in the trash can where it goes? Just like that, please, thank you. Whereas if it were my bio kid, I'd be like, what are you doing? Pick that up.
Yeah.
You have that level of comfort. Your bio kid's going to love you, even if you have to tell them to do something they don't want to do.
Well, and a lot of people listening will say, why couldn't you tell your stepdaughter to pick up that trash?
Well, because it didn't matter how I said it. She would tell her dad later, Britt yelled at me today. She yelled at me about trash today.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my husband, it's not that he believed stepdaughter and didn't believe me. It was that he was afraid to tell stepdaughter that he knew that she lied about everything.
Right.
Because he knew.
Because they're put in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because he knew that if I got upset with him, at the end of the day, we would work it out and we would still be together. But he didn't have that relationship security with my stepkids.
How is your husband handling his kids not coming? I know he's still seeing his son, but not hearing from the daughters, them not responding. Is he talking to a therapist about that? Because
yeah, he is. He is.
Good.
He's handling it very different than I expected, especially given his history. The reason that we were apart in the past is because, bio mom came to him and said, you're a terrible dad when you have a girlfriend. You need to focus on your kids. Your kids are all resenting you and they're not going to want to be around you if you have a girlfriend. And at the time, I was like a non-person in our relationship.
Right.
I had no original thoughts or opinions, and we never blended. It was me jumping into their life. They knew nothing about me. All of the things that I had done and enjoyed before we were together, I didn't do anymore because there was no time.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband's kids are all like multi-sport kids. So the majority of my time was spent driving them around, even when we were first dating. And so I think, I expected my husband to have a lot more difficult time with it than he has. I think it's almost been like a weight lifted. And I think he's reached the understanding that it's not necessarily forever, but they have some growing up to do. That unfortunately, with the influence at bio mom's house and the fact that they are there at least 50% of the time, it's really impossible to undo that influence as much as we've tried. And I think that my husband didn't even realize what a healthy parent-child relationship was supposed to be until my son came along. And I'll tell you that I've struggled with at times how strict my husband is with my son, because he's let my stepkids just get away with murder. And but I understand, again, it goes back to that logically versus like what your heart tells you type thing. And so logically, I understand that just like he has that relationship security with me, where he knows even if I'm upset with him, I'm not going to go file for divorce. Like, we're going to work through it.
Right.
He has that same relationship security with my son. He knows that if he has to tell him no about something or go put him in a timeout, my son's going to come out and wrap his arms around him and everything's going to be okay. And he has never known that with his own kids.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't have to worry about your son going, well, I'll go live with mom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest with you, out of all of my bio sons, I would say his grown-ups, because I think it's really hard for kids in blended families. Like when people refer to, your parents, your mom and dad, what if mom and dad aren't together? So I always say my bio son's grown-ups, because that includes all four of us parents in his life. Out of all of us and everyone he knows, my husband is his favorite human on the entire planet. If my husband and I go together to pick my son up from a visit, my son every single time will run right past me and right into my husband's arms. He's his favorite person.
I love that though.
Yeah.
I know it breaks your heart, but I love it.
Yeah. And like I, mentioned earlier, we own a construction business. So there is nothing that my son enjoys more than riding in the work van.
Yeah.
So that's like really a treat to him. But yeah, I see as my son gets older and starts to learn things enough to get in trouble for things and have to be corrected, I see my husband's eyes opening more and more to a parent-child relationship does not have to be like those were.
Right. If you had to choose whether he parented your son like he did his kids or he parented your son like he is now, you would choose that he parent your son like he is now.
100%, although I do have to remind myself sometimes.
I know.
But when my stepson 8 was coming over every other weekend, it did get a little muddy sometimes. And that's, I see a lot of stepmoms posting in the Facebook group about, okay, so Nacho means, I don't step in and discipline his kids, but it does get really muddy when you have a whole group of kids together, because then your bio kids are upset with you when, there's one rule, but only one, or 2 people are doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, but only one person gets called out for it. Mm-hmm. And it did get muddy like that when my stepson was here. The last time he was here, the 2 kids were down, and my stepson 8 were down in the playroom playing together, and they were playing with my bio son's toys. Okay, no big deal, right? And then my stepson brought out something of his, and my bio son wanted to play with it with him. And my husband and stepson both got on to him and said, no, that's not yours. You can't play with what's not yours. And at that point, after that happened, I did pull my husband aside, and I was like, okay, wait a second, time out. I'm trying not to say anything, but you can't, there are 2 kids in the house. You can't teach one thing and one the other thing right in front of each other.
Yeah. You can't say you can't play with your older brother's toys, but he can play with yours.
Exactly. Yeah, either we all play with our own things, or we all play together, or
exactly.
Simple concept, but not that simple in reality.
Well, and I know a lot of times it's hard because people will say, well, I expect my kids to do chores and he doesn't, so my kids are complaining. Well, do you want to lower your parenting standards? No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So don't let it be an issue. And when they say it's not fair, say, I understand it's not fair, but I'm your parent and I tell you what to do. And he's their parent and he tells them what to do.
Right.
And it's no different than if little Susie next door never has to do chores, but you do.
Right.
Just because we live in the same house doesn't mean that he parents his kids the same way I parent you.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it does get a little tricky in our situation, just because, my husband's been with my bio son since before he was born. He was the one with me at his birth. Mm-hmm. So it is tricky because he certainly doesn't see my son as my son and not his.
Right. Yeah. I would consider him our son.
Yeah. He definitely functions that way in the house.
Because I don't think that he's going to treat your next son any differently than he does your bio son now. I think it's going to be the same.
Right. Absolutely. I think a big difference is, though, I was telling you earlier about bio mom kind of cutting him off from disciplining right in front of the kids. So the kids, my stepkids, have always, learned and had it ingrained that dad is stupid and can't make any good decisions. And so we're going to defer to mom on everything. And, there are definitely times when he's getting on to my 2-year-old for something, my husband is. And I think to myself, it's not really that big of a deal, but I'm still going to back him up on it. So I don't, my son needs to always see that we're united, where you can't do the thing of playing one parent against the other, not with us.
Right. And there is a huge difference in the age of the child. I mean, like you said, he was there when your son was born. It's not like he was 3 and came into his life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met my stepson, who's 8 now, right after he turned 4, but he really doesn't remember a time without me in it. So I don't know. I think because I met him so young, it's especially hard for me that things have unfolded the way that they have, and that we've ended up where we have. So I know my stepkids certainly blame me for who my husband is as a dad now versus who he was as a dad when we first met. Because when we first met, there were no rules, no boundaries. You see a lot of stepmoms talk about a stepdaughter with mini wife syndrome. And I didn't even know what that was until a couple of years ago. And I'm like, my oldest stepdaughter, every box I could check. Yeah. And not in the way of I expect, her not to sit by her dad. And when my husband was irritated with me about something, that's who he would go to and tell instead of talking to me. So it was like she always had the inside track on our relationship. She was always a part of financial decisions more than I was, or before I was, and things like that. And so as my husband started going and seeing this counselor and really kind of looking back on his past, figuring things out, and really started getting emotionally and mentally healthy and understanding what a father was supposed to be, what that role was supposed to look like, and kind of making it what he wanted it to be. My stepkids, they never saw all of the hard work that my husband put in. They saw, well, now that Britt's in his life, he's doing things differently, so it must be her fault.
Right. Exactly. It's like we said, if the kids could run around like hoodlums before and then all of a sudden they can't, what changed?
Right.
Britt came into the picture. It's
Yeah.
Britt's fault.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Or I used to could sleep with my dad till Britt came into the picture.
Yeah. That was a thing too, that they did. They would all sleep in the bed, or I would, when we first moved in together, like I would wake up on Saturday morning and all of my stepdaughters were in there. And not that there was ever anything inappropriate or questionable happening. It's just weird at a certain age, I think. And in today's day and age, it becomes something that if they were to go to school and repeat, that they slept in their dad's bed last night, like that could potentially make a thing out of nothing. So you have to be very careful with things like that. And there was one time right before my stepdaughters went to live with their mom full time where my husband, he had never taken their phones away as a consequence. Something had happened and he was like, you know what, I want you to sit down and have some quiet time. And my husband's like so kind in how he like disciplines them. It was never like, you're in trouble, give me your phone. I want you to take some time, reflect on things, and I'll do the same, and then let's come back together and talk. So let me have your phone for a little bit. And it was like something simple like that. My stepdaughter, 17, turned it into this like huge battle. And I was like, I could hear from the next room, their bedroom was next to ours. I could hear from the next room what was happening. And I heard her say to my husband, I am a young lady. You can't touch me. And I like immediately walked in there and I was like, you know what? I'm going to stand in the doorway because that sounds like, so many other things, so many other times, they're trying to set us up for something.
Right. You're right. I'm glad that you had the wherewithal to go stand in the door.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to stand in the doorway and be another set of eyes here.
Yep. Very smart. Well, Britt, I could talk to you all day.
Right back at you.
It has been great having you as a guest on our podcast. And we know that you've been through a lot and we appreciate you sharing your story with us because I know that it's going to help other people.
And that's my hope, Lori, that when I first became a stepmom, I didn't even know that there were resources out there or Facebook groups or places where you could ask, is this happening to other people too? Mm-hmm. And so my hope is that even though we've had a very tumultuous relationship with, everyone involved, and it's been really, really hard. My hope is that, that our story helps some other stepmom in some way know that it's not just you. This happens to other people too, and you're going to be okay.
Yes, you're going to be okay. Definitely. And keep in touch with us and let us know how things are going. I would love to have you back, let's say, in 2 years.
See where we're at.
Yeah, to see where you're at. You already have had the baby. We'll get to see if maybe he's the same with the baby as he is with your bio son too, which I think he will be. I really do believe he will be.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, but keep us updated in between then, and I'll let our listeners know how you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Did y'all catch the part where she said that her husband thought Nacho was an insult? Be careful how you explain this to your significant other if you decide to nacho. And in some cases, you don't need to explain it. No, I'm not telling you to lie or hide things. I'm telling you that you know your significant other better than we do. And sometimes you just need to make adjustments and not say, I'm nachoing your kids.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't explain what it's all about, then the only thing a person can do is just infer what that means. I mean, certainly if you're saying it in the heat of the moment, then it's certainly going to come out as being a negative thing.
How would you explain it, David?
Well, first of all, I don't think trying to explain it when tempers are flaring, this is a good idea. You don't wait until there's a issue and they go, I'm not showing your kids. And by the way, that means rah, 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 because at that point, nobody's really listening. And it's coming from a place of resentment and all this other stuff. But I would sit down and explain it in a way that basically says, look, I want the best relationship I can have with you, with the kids, and whatever that happens to look like. However, in order for me to do that, there are things that I need to do to work on myself first, and then it will improve the dynamics within the relationships, within the blend. And part of that is me not putting myself in situations where it's going to cause problems. And I don't even think you need to name the situations, because then it's going to turn into your kid did this kind of discussion if you're not careful. But you want to make it about what the end result is going to look like, not necessarily how you get there. And you also want it. You also want to focus on what is the benefit for everybody, not what's the benefit for you. Because if you're only talking about, I need to lower my stress and I need to focus on me and that's all the person's going to hear is you're going me. There's no benefit for anybody else. Even if there is one, that's not what they're hearing. Mm-hmm. And so you have to focus on the benefit overall, and you have to focus on what is the end going to look like. It's, you begin with the end in mind. Right. If I want to quote Stephen Covey, but that's what you want to focus on. What is it going to look like when you do this?
Sounds good.
All right.
I'd just say, look at him. I'm tired of toting your ungrateful youngins everywhere and cooking for them, and all they say is, that looks like dog food. So you're going to have to take over. Look how simple that was.
That is not how you would do it. Because that's not how you did it.
That's an example of how not to tell someone you're going to do nacho.
Yeah, because all they hear is how you're not going to be doing anything anymore.
What they hear is you hate my kids.
Yeah, that too.
Yep. All right, folks. David, do your spiel.
All right. That's our show for today. Join us next week when we talk about more crazy stuff, but we're not going to talk about shutting down the podcast.
No, we're not. That wasn't even funny. You probably shouldn't have used that as an April Fool's joke.
I think it's funny. But anyway, if you have any ideas about what we can do to Jackson, let us know.
No.
I might flatten the tires on his truck.
No, you're not.
Yeah, that sounds good.
How's that an April Fool's joke?
What if I loosen up the lug nuts on his wheels?
David.
All right, folks. We'll talk to you next week. If I survive.
No, we're not done. I need people to give suggestions on what you can do to your kids that aren't here for April Fools.
Well, that's just it. They're not here. It's a little bit harder.
You can do anything over the phone.
Oh, my gosh. Who uses phones?
Oh, my gosh.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week. And remember, life is good
when you nacho.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.